So I've been away last week, and we had a little bit of a break. But we've also had we're kind of at that point of the year, Abner, where we'd usually be gearing up, wouldn't we? And most people would be gearing up for a big Pixel launch. But we've had, nearly it's almost 3 months since the Pixel series was unveiled?
Yeah, I know it's been weird. Like, I'm seeing photos of, like, Google Photos telling me it's been a year, 2 years, 3 years since the usual October Made by Google events. So that's funny. But yeah, we are at this point, the event just happened, or we're gearing up for it, we're in the post of it. But at this point, we're truly finished with the entire cycle, the entire 2024 flagship cycle. And it's definitely different. And it kind of leaves a vacuum in terms of it seemed like everybody in the tech industry had the same idea this year. And that ends up leaving a vacuum of not too many major news events, announcements happening.
Yeah, it's weird. It feels weird. It just feels like I'm so accustomed to Pixel launch season being dark and dingy and freezing cold. And to have the phone in my hand right now, and obviously we'll talk a little bit about what we think, how we've been experiencing them. Pixel Watch 3, maybe we'll get into the buds a little bit. I know we talked about that in a few podcasts ago, but how are you finding, because I think you're using the Pro, right? The regular small Pro. How are you finding that compared to, say, last year when you were using the Pixel 8 series after 3 months? I know it's not quite kind of difficult to compare because we wouldn't even have the Pixel 8 in our hands right now, but yeah, how are you getting on so far?
I do feel a few weeks in, the novelty of this design has worn off, and I'd say I've said the same about the 8. It's the design after living with it. It is comfortable. It's nothing sharp edges, no bulkiness to it. So I'm no complaints there. Google tends to make comfortable phones to hold, good a feel in that regard, and they continued it with the 9. So that going in was my biggest complaint about this more boxy design.
I must admit, to add a little bit of interest to that bit, I have the Pixel 8 and the Pixel 9 on my desk, the Pixel 9 being another test device, the 8 being another 2 test devices side by side. And while there's a lot of similarities in the design language and stuff, you can definitely tell there's some Google's learning from the process of making high-end phones now. After 3 months of using the 9 series, it's almost like you become accustomed to them flat sides a little bit more so than I expected.
Absolutely.
I thought I'd have a bit more of an aversion to them. And it's just to let people know, I'm using the Pixel 9 Pro XL, so I'm using the big dog this year. And the previous years, I've kind of flip-flopped between Pro and normal size one. I do think this year is the year I'm probably going to stick with the biggest device. But having picked up the iPhone 16 Pro Max for comparative purposes, it's so weird when they're both in my pocket because I'll reach for one, obviously without looking, and they feel almost identical. There is barely any difference between them. So I don't know if that's a compliment or a negative, but it's very, very strange carrying 2 devices, or if I do carry 2 devices. I'm interested to see how, or if Google does it next time around, they kind of iterate on it again and make it slightly different and make it its own thing. In terms of the actual device itself, what color? Just remind me what color you went for.
Hazel.
You went for the hazel. So you have the same color as me. It's a little bit. How do you feel about it now? I'm kind of I've become a little bit indifferent to it, and I wish I'd have picked something like that peony color or the rose quartz for the XL.
Yeah, it's gray. It's still effectively gray, and it's basically, in that regard, it's why some people just choose black or white every year. It really fits into that pattern of inoffensive almost. I do wish it was interesting. I know our colleague Kyle, he went with the peony, and I'm sure he's enjoying that. But yeah, I do wish it was something a bit more vibrant, like not the base Pixel 9 last year. Sorry, the base Pixel 8 and the 8A, they have fun colors. And yes, the base Pixel 9 too. So I wish that continued. Like a nice green or nice blue, but we're not living in that universe, unfortunately.
Yeah, I feel like in terms of the colors, it doesn't. This is going to sound ridiculous because I know that they've gone for this almost. Clearly, there's inspirations from Cupertino, but it feels like it doesn't stand out as much. It doesn't feel like the Pixel stands out this year compared to, say, the Pixel 8. I thought like the bay color Pixel 8 Pro did look pretty impressive, but I felt like I was. This is going to sound another bit ridiculous, redundant comment. I felt that color, and this is why I switched to the mint, was too brash. I loved the color initially, and then I was like, oh, I wish I had something a little bit more kind of simplified, something a little bit more pastel, something plain. And I don't know if I'm now having that opposite reaction with the hazel model, and I wish I'd have gone for the white one. Yeah, I feel like with the bay one, I just kind of got tired of the color. I thought it was a bit too much. But I mean, I'm not seeing as many. I must admit, I'm not seeing as many Pixel 9 series devices this time around as I did the Pixel 8 series last year. So I don't know how that. I mean, I'm guessing with update cycles, we may see that change over the next couple of months because most people will have bought in October if they're an early adopter. And obviously, that 2-year cycle is only just coming up now, right? So devices would have shipped, end of October, start of November for most people. So, yeah, it feels like we were saying right at the start of this, it feels very, very different in that I don't know where I stand with the Pixel this year in terms of longevity and stuff. I don't know if it. Usually, I'll be switching to something in a few months' time, but I'm probably going to have longer with the Pixel from launch until the next unit that comes out, be that OnePlus, be that Samsung, than probably ever before, and that's going to be a strange experience.
Yeah, it's the idea that it's. I almost hate to say this, but it's the idea that Apple, in people's mind, they have locked in the idea of a modern smartphone or the contemporary smartphone design with these flat rails and flat back. It's, again, I'm of the opinion that Google had another generation or two with the design language introduced from the 6 to the 8. I still think that's a more googly design than what we have today. On that note, what are the design changes that Google made justified? The flat rails, I do prefer holding them, let's say, when I'm laying down. That's a nice difference. I do like the flat volume buttons and the flat power button. It's slightly larger, but not big enough yet. I do, and I think it's something we haven't really seen yet, but case makers, I think this is an easier design for them to build off on. I'm not sure we've seen a significant increase in cases just yet compared to previous years, but I would like to think that between the 9 and the 9 Pro, the small ones sharing the same body to just the same flat design being easier to build for, I think there are advantages there.
Yeah, 100%. I think with regard to accessories, and you raise a good point in a lot of ways, because if these companies are going to retool a design to make it for the Pixel, because it seemed to be that obviously Samsung and iPhone practically dominate the market at the top end anyway. It definitely feels like, and I'm looking at some of the cases I have here, that the quality of the cases that have been available for the Pixel 9 Pro and the 9 Pro and 9 Pro XL have taken a massive step up. Like I use the same. This just shows how boring I am, how basic I am. I use a mouse case for the Pixel 9 Pro XL and a mouse case which I picked up for the iPhone 16 Pro Max, and I think that probably they go toe to toe. It's for all intents and purposes, it's the same case with a slightly different cutout for the camera, and I do think that is something that has always been a little bit missing when I've tried these high end, say $40 to $50, maybe higher accessories for the Pixel 9 series. So it definitely feels like now we're getting parity in terms of like the extras. Maybe don't have parity in terms of performance and stuff, but obviously design there is there. And I think side by side it does stand there. The Pixel is now standing up a little bit better against the iPhone. It may blend into the crowd a bit more, but I'm definitely finding people will ask me about it a little bit more than I expected. I thought people would be like, "Oh, he's using an iPhone," but like, "Oh, why does your iPhone got a weird bar?" And then they can ask me about it, camera bar that is, and even things like the dynamic island, is it called dynamic island? The big notch. There's people being like, "Oh, why is your dynamic island or your big notch on your iPhone not that big?" I'm like, "It's not an iPhone. It's an Android phone." And so yeah, there's some cool things. I think I've kind of come to terms with the fact that it is, for all intents and purposes, an iPhone clone.
Yeah.
And it's, dare I say it? I don't know if I want to say this out loud. It's the best. It's the best so far. It's the outright best iPhone clone that I've seen. And it's obviously the differentiations in the software. And I do think that to be quite honest with you, having used the iPhone for a few weeks side by side, I'm kind of glad that Google has not tried to pander a little bit more than they probably could for iPhone owners. I don't think necessarily people are going to switch, if I'm being completely honest, but from a design perspective, if you're used to that, maybe you might look at it and think, oh yeah, it's the same kind of design I'm used to.
Familiarity is important. That's
100%.
Like switching from Android to iOS or vice versa is already a big gap. Giving people familiar design really does help, and I think that's might be an underrated aspect of this change. I believe I would have heard if you've dropped your phone, if you dropped your Pixel in the past few weeks. So, in that sense, I don't think we can really speak to the durability of these devices yet. But I have gone caseless, as always. Looks fine so far.
I'm going to interrupt you there. I do not know how you do that. At home, I can just about stomach it when I'm at home, and even now I have it in a slim case. So I have dropped it with the case on, but that was it. Actually, wasn't it? It was another case. I have two. So I know. Sorry, listeners, this is really boring, but I bought two of the mouse cases. I bought the one that's like a coral color, which is incredible, but I managed to drop that and take a chunk out of the corner of the case, so it's now not safe to use. So luckily, I had a black one that was sent as a review unit, and I kind of slapped it in that. Usually, I wouldn't use a review unit. I'd just use one that I purchased myself because I just prefer to do that. But yeah, the phone has remained unscathed. Touch wood. I have a few little nicks around that silvery like side bezel. So even after 3 months, my concerns about it getting scratched up to high heaven are not really that founded. Maybe I've been to the beach a few times as well. I know that there was sand in and around my phone. And touch wood, I'm very, very wary of saying this out loud now because I'll probably notice a scratch later. I haven't managed to scratch the rails apart from one tiny little nick that is next to the power button, but I think that's because I had something on my finger. So that's kind of to be expected. That's natural wear and tear. The fact that you use it caseless and without a screen protector blows my mind.
I just before we go into that, I just have to discuss was it a rocky beach?
A mixture, I think, a lot of stones, but there was a lot of like. So I don't know if you wouldn't have been to a beach in the UK, Abner, that I'm aware of, but the sand is very, very gritty, so it's very, very big and visible. So that's why I was like, okay, wipe that off, get rid of it. If it was like a real fine sandy beach, like I don't know, somewhere in California, then I'd be a bit more worried.
Yeah, but anyways, to your question, I don't know, the extra bulk doesn't do anything for me. It's. Actually, this is on the design, on a rated note on the design. Do you think these are thin enough? I feel like it's a millimeter too thick. Especially caseless.
That's a very, very good question. I think you could be right. I think if they were slightly thinner, I think a bit more waif-like, a bit of a wafer. I think there'd be... I don't know. I mean, I'm kind of falling into the trappings of if they made it flush with the camera bar and they just filled it with battery, would I be happy? I probably would. And I know a lot of people will put a protective case in it anyway. So do people really care about how thin their phone is if
No,
they're going
they
to protect it? We're the outliers here where we want thin cases or we don't care about necessary. I mean, we're in a very privileged position. Granted, I did buy my own Pixel 9 Pro XL that sometimes we get review units. So if something does go awry or something, you break one, there is always another backup there somewhere. But yeah, I probably do agree with you. It could be a bit thinner. But then again, the battery argument is always there as well in the back of my mind.
Yeah, but yeah, it's in terms of caseless usage, I don't see any significant scratches. The rails, that I still think that is a bad. The shiny, polished rails. The fingerprints are there, just looking at it all the time. And there was a period, like a week or two, where I just like kept cleaning it, like with a polishing cloth at the end of the day or something. But I've given up on that. It's a battle you can't win. Okay, the reason it's shiny is because Google thinks it's a more premium feel. They want to contrast it to the regular 9 series. I just think that's a wrong calculus. I just think that's a wrong calculus.
I think if you're going to throw your phone in a case anyway, it doesn't matter, does it? I think
it doesn't matter. But
yeah,
I think most the same point to the Google. If people are going to put it in a case,
yeah, I think
why is it polished?
At the risk of using the term average user, which I don't really like to say, most people, I think, which is just as bad, most people out there will get their phone and they won't change it for 2 or 3 years, so they're going to keep it protected. And the fact of the matter is, a $15, $20 case, even a $50 case, is going to be something you go out and buy to keep your phone protected. You don't really care necessarily about the rails. You might take it out every so often, like I do, to clean the phone, but other than that, I don't think it matters as much as maybe we seem to get into the nitty-gritty details of it. But I would like to have seen it matte. I think matte would have just looked better for everyone involved, really. Apple have done it, so I don't see why Google won't follow suit if they're going to copy the design again and copy the homework.
And final question on that. How's the weight for you? And in a similar way, I think it could be just like a millimeter thinner. I think it could be lighter with stainless steel, aluminum. I think I would have been fine with aluminum if the past 2 Pixel watches, if anything, looking at the past 2 Pixel watches, a shiny aluminum would have been as fine as stainless steel to me.
Well, the 9 to the 9 Pro is quite drastic. So I don't know. I feel like I can kind of deal with it because I've like almost come to terms with the weight of it. It would be nice if it was a little bit lighter, but I guess once you start like the biggest thing for me is the top heaviness of it. The camera bar is a lot heavier. It feels a lot heavier this time around, and so I'm holding the phone a little bit higher up than I usually would. Again, it's like I've kind of just become used to it. Obviously, getting used to the new ergonomics with the flat sides has been actually really nice. Actually, I think it means it makes the typing experience a little bit better because you can put your fingers more into a position where you can rest it against. If you type like me with both thumbs, you can kind of have it in the palms of your hands a little bit better. But there definitely is a top heaviness. Would it be nice to be lighter? 100%, yeah, 100%. Because what we're looking at, around 230 grams. I don't know what that is in imperial, but that is heavy, like by phone standards. But I guess I used the OnePlus 12 for a long period of time, and that had even worse balance because the camera is so huge and so like boggly at one side. So maybe I would give it a passing grade, if that makes sense. I'd give it a passing grade just for the weight and the balance. I don't know. Are you using a smaller phone? So how do you feel it works with the 9 Pro in its little kind of tiny little chassis?
I feel like to your point about it being top heavy, I feel like I'm relying more I'm putting my finger under the camera bar more as a weight, as to distribute weight or to help it feel secure in my hand. I feel like I'm doing that more. The weight is, I know it's harder. I keep trying to I'm not sure if this is related anyway, but I keep trying to use the double tap gesture, which is broken on every single Pixel device in that under 50% success rate. But I bring that up because when I'm holding it with one hand and I try to double tap the rear with my forefinger, if I feel it's a bit insecure, I don't trust that I'm holding it tight enough to give it a double tap and for it not to fall, for me to accidentally push it from behind. So yeah, there's that about that aspect.
This is where I would say just get a case, mate. Just go get yourself a case, and you'll minimize that risk.
Never.
But how do you? So we've covered. I think we've covered the kind of the in air quotes hardware. But there's one piece of this device, specifically the 9 Pro XL, which I genuinely, every time I use it, has wowed me, and especially when I was at IFA. For some reason, IFA was like the turning point. The screen. I feel like I could wax lyrical about this screen all day. It is absolutely phenomenal. I know the Pixel 8 had a nice screen, but I don't know what they've been doing. The tuning of this thing is incredible. When you're in that bright sunlight, I was remembering the reason why I mentioned IFA, I was on a taxi back to the airport with bright sunlight on the screen, and it went up to its fullest brightness it can possibly go. I don't think it is 3000 nits, but in real terms. But I just remember thinking, this looks like paper. Like I can actually, every interaction I have with the screen is incredible. The haptics. I'll get into that a little bit later, but how you feel about the screen on the smaller version? Because I found, while it is good, specifically the 9, there's definitely a step down there. There's definitely quite a noticeable step down between the 9 and the 9 Pro.
In terms of the screen, the thing I appreciate most is the bezels, the thin bezels. They feel significantly different, especially since I'm now on the Pro phone after using the base for so long. I'd say it was really impressive, but then the iPhone 16 came out with its thin bezels, which some say are too thin because there's no place to rest their finger comfortably. But until then, the bezels are something that I still notice every day, I think, on the 9 Pro, in terms of it being so uniform. And to me, it's the thinnest that I've experienced, I believe, personally in day-to-day usage, and it just makes it ever feel more screen. And I guess this is to the benefit of going with the flat rails and the corner there. It just does seem to you on how it feels like paper. To me, it feels ever so slightly close to the idea of holding a floating screen, a floating window to the internet or whatever. I get a kick out of that. It's a small thing. It's not a very practical thing, but I do appreciate that effect every so often.
Yeah, I found that I'm watching more things on my phone. I'm not really a big phone watch, like videos on my phone very often, but I find I'm consuming a lot more. It just feels. It's weird because the Pixel 8 Pro had such a good screen. I think, but again, we noticed these tiny things. I think the lopsided nature of that little chin bezel, it probably doesn't bother anybody else, but it kind of did to me when I wanted to watch things, because I'm kind of looking at it from like a meticulous positioning side. And the only thing I will say is I'm not a huge fan. The updated selfie camera, that slightly bigger cutout
is too big.
Yeah, the positioning is. I understand clearly they've lowered it in the screen to make room for it, but it is definitely too. It definitely feels a bit too big, especially when you're watching things or so anything with a white background, like a website or anything like that, and stuff goes behind it. But I can kind of take that because having used the 16 Pro Max with it in the last couple of weeks, I'm like, oh yeah, fair enough, because at least there's no gimmicks with like silly things that try and integrate it. Because to be quite honest with you, I don't care about those. I feel like I can long press this to access the music controls. I'd rather just open the app and scroll, or just use quick settings. It's the same thing. But yeah, I think it's an absolute triumph. I think the display, they've absolutely nailed it. The viewing angles are incredible. The color tune is always good on a Pixel display, but this is out and out the best screen, probably behind the S24 Ultra's anti-glare display, because between the two, I can't choose which is the outright best, but I do think it probably is edged by the Samsung, because that anti-glare screen, if Google could somehow either put it in their own devices, if Samsung hasn't patented it or whatever, or license it, then I think that could be the outright best by some margin.
So moving on from display, how's the camera been for you?
Well, I've been taking a lot more videos this year, which is weird for me. Someone who owns 2 cameras potentially is going to get a third. I think it doesn't feel like the big step up that I maybe expected it to be. There isn't we've got a new telephoto lens, and the selfie camera is a lot better. I do think the selfie camera is probably as good as it gets, actually. What type of photos do you tend to take? Because I've been doing a little bit more like ultra wide stuff, which I don't normally like. I found that's a lot better. I just think with a Pixel camera, for me, it's more about consistency. And I love the fact that if I take my phone out of my pocket and I'm going to take a still image, I'm just going to point, tap to focus, and it's going to take the picture that I want, rather than having to mess around with settings.
I have absolutely been. I feel like I've been using the camera more because I'm experimenting more with the telephoto, than just taking the longer shot, or maybe not being as close as something now that I know I have a telephoto when taking landscapes or close-up shots, somewhat close-up shots. I feel that I've been loving getting a telephoto back after the last one I used heavily was the 6 Pro. And the Fold, of course. But yeah, I just like the idea of just it confirms it for me. It's better than an ultrawide to me in terms of it's a more practical lens, I think, compared to the scenarios when using an ultrawide. And it's like the ultrawide, great for selfies, say, but let's be honest, most people always use the front for selfies, even if they had something way better. It's just a framing device for the screen and the framing. So yeah, you've been taking more video in that. So Video Boost all out?
I've used it on and off. The only reason I don't use Video Boost all that often is because I want to use 60 FPS. I just wish we could get Video Boost at 60 FPS, but I imagine that would completely obliterate the time it would take for stuff to like render and all that kind of stuff. I haven't done much 8K video because I noticed that it goes to something like 600 or 700 megabytes per second, or megabits per second, which is insane for a file size to kind of deal with. But and the quality is mixed. I think you're better off having a high quality 4K 60 FPS image. But yeah, Video Boost, I kind of mess around with it. Like in low light scenarios, it is genuinely excellent. It's just a shame that we're having to rely on that upload download process. It's fine. It's fine. I understand why. Because you're working with a smaller sensor, all of the kind of the intricacies of improving the image. You can't necessarily do HDR in real time on the Tensor chipset, probably without it setting a light and blowing up your phone. But yeah, I think the videos, it's very comparable with the best in the business now. With Video Boost on, it competes a little bit better with the iPhone. I do think the iPhone, sadly, rightly or wrongly, it's still the pinnacle in terms of video. I would have loved to have seen Google do something with log. I think that's one thing that, as someone who does a lot of video and who doesn't actually shoot in log that often, so again, I'm a hypocrite, it would be nice to be able to shoot log video from the Pixel to an external drive, because everybody else seems to be wanting to do that now. And obviously everybody wants be a videographer. So having those functions, I think we've had pro controls for the stills, maybe some pro controls for the video side of things would be kind of cool. I just think they have all the pieces in place, right, with the camera. Just a few tiny tweaks can really, really elevate the Pixel camera experience a little bit higher. I don't think Google's made any missteps with the camera this year at all. I like the fact that the regular 9 can at least match it with 2 lenses, and that's kind of cool. I know obviously you're experiencing telephoto again, which I'm pleased about. I'm a telephoto evangelist, so yeah, anyone out there who's worried about, I don't know if I should go with the Pro or the regular 9. While the regular 9's excellent, if you want camera kind of flexibility, definitely go with the Pro or the Pro XL, because that telephoto is, while it's nowhere near the best, don't get me wrong, still think that's the S23 Ultra in North American markets. Don't think you can get any Vivo phones or any Chinese super zoom kind of phones, but yes, it is good. I love the Pixel experience anyway for its camera. I just like how unfussy it is. So maybe Google wants to try and find a way to integrate these things in and not make them confusing, because I do think we can look at the iPhone and that camera control button is just confusing and makes no sense at all.
So yeah, actually to go back to a previous thing, you're watching all the video. How are the speakers on this? To me, it's I still find it amusing purely aesthetically that the speaker cutout is no longer balanced on the bottom. That's again purely an aesthetic thing. The speakers,
I mean, they're fine, right? They do what they need to do. I guess we're never going to get true like audio-visual excellence with the speakers on a smartphone, but I think it's fine. I think we've had better Pixel speakers before in the past, to be completely honest with you. But I think maybe some of the benefits of this chassis, this flat railed kind of more of a domino type shape, is going to be beneficial in the long run, because you can put, there is more room to put maybe a tweeter in there and a bit more speaker oomph. I think it's fine. I kind of only listen to podcasts on it. When I watch a video, I'll put headphones in. So
yeah.
I kind of maybe not the best person to ask. I feel like I apologize, but yeah, I don't necessarily have too many strong feelings about the speaker. I do think Samsung does it better. OnePlus does it really good as well in terms of audio. And then obviously iPhone does really, really good audio. But the Pixel's in there. It's in the mix. It's not terrible. It could be a bit louder. But I guess that would distort things. I think maybe for calls, how do you feel the speakers are for calls? Because that's an important one, I think.
I'm always a headphones person.
You're always a headphones guy.
I make a point of taking the headphones out no matter the call.
I feel like the earpiece could be a bit better. I've always found in the last maybe 3 or 4 generations at the very least that the Pixel speaker, the earpiece speaker anyway, it's just a little bit, sometimes I have to kind of like shuffle it around my ear to get the right positioning so I can actually hear people. It'd be nice to just get that a bit louder. If they're going to do anything with the audio, fix that earpiece speaker so it's nice and loud for calls.
As your aversion to me not using a case, my aversion would be the idea of putting a phone up to your oily ear, to everybody's oily ears, and just, that to me is a terrifying thing right there. That is a terrifying thought.
Okay, let's get down to brass tacks. We're 3 months down the line. How is your battery treating you? Because this has always been something that I think for me with Pixel phones has either remained consistent or absolutely tanked. How's it treat you so far?
I always end up going into the red, just like the last hour, like when I'm just like winding down, brushing my teeth, that kind of end day routine. It always ends up in the red by then, which I guess is fine in terms of you're not going to use it afterwards. It's going to be charging afterwards. It's not instilling confidence, I'd say. It would all be nice if you end the day above 20 just in case, but maybe that there's no real practical terms to it. Yeah.
Are you glued to your phone though? Are you like constantly on your phone?
I do switch to a tablet
okay.
towards the end of the day too.
Okay. I think with the 9XL, I'm having fine. The battery life is fine in that my charging process is all over the place. So I've literally...
I'm a one-time charge. I don't charge during the middle of the day.
Okay, so my charging routine is completely all over the place. I don't like charging my phone overnight because just a bit of backstory. With the Pixel 4 XL, I 100% overcharged that phone, and the battery was already bad, and it was ruined. So ever since then, I've been a bit more cautious about how I charge my phone. So I'm currently sat at 92%. I've charged it probably about an hour and a half ago to 92%. I think the idle battery is a lot better than the Pixel 8. The Pixel 8 series was terrible for me in idle. It would just drop 20% overnight for no reason. But when I'm using it, it wasn't too bad. I don't know what that was. Maybe I had a rogue app. But I'm finding it's I don't want to say solid. I'm going to say it's good. It's not the longest lasting phone out there. Make no mistake about that. It's just, it will get you through what you need to do in a normal day, unless you're really, really pushing it. You're using lots of GPS, all that kind of stuff. The most I've kind of hammered my phone in the last couple of months was when I was traveling, and it withstood the full day. So I think I left at like 6 a.m. I landed in Germany at something like, by the time I was in my hotel, it was like 3 p.m. And I'm constantly listening to podcasts. I'm scrolling social media when I'm not talking to anyone at the airport, using it as the for tickets and stuff, and paying for things. By the time 3 p.m. rolled around, and I was absolutely destroying the phone, it was probably sat about 55%, and that, to be fair, was not too bad. Similar to what I'd expect from most big battery phones, but in the long term, I don't know. With that 7-year update program, I do update plan. If people are going to be, hey, fair play to you if you're going to do 7 years with this phone. I think really Godspeed to you. I do think you're going to need a battery replacement after about 3 years, like most phones nowadays. But it's absolutely fine for me when I keep things in check. If I'm not like sat on it constantly, scrolling, doing all that kind of stuff, and maybe like doing GPS, which is easily the biggest taxing thing on my battery. I can hit if I say charged at 7 a.m. to 100%, I probably could go to bed with about 35-40%, and I still use the phone a fair amount. I don't want to put a screen on time metric on that, because I think it's a terrible metric, because, hey, 7 hours of scrolling Chrome is not the same as 7 hours of Google Maps, right? So, yeah.
It's the metric we have, unfortunately.
I think I'm charging it. Like I say, I'm charging it really sporadically. If it gets low, I kind of just, I'll chuck it on charge. But yeah, it's fine. It seems pretty fine to me so far. I've not seen any degradation, really. It's been the same as it has been since launch. I'd love to see a battery health metric, but I think we're getting that with 15, right? Or the feature drop in December?
Remains to be seen.
Yeah, so I feel like that kind of covers with Pixel 9 series in terms of how it's aged
hardware,
so far.
Yeah,
the hardware's been pretty good. In terms of the software, what are you thinking in terms of... I'm so disappointed. I'm still really disappointed it launched with Android 14, and I'm still running that now.
I think we probably need to reassess more after Android 15 comes out. But I guess we can talk about the Pixel exclusive apps this time around, more so than the OS just yet. But Pixel Studio, Pixel Weather, Pixel Screenshots. So I'll start with Pixel Weather. Fantastic app, clean, gorgeous. Miss Froggy not being there. I'm not using the AI weather summaries as much, but the weather has been the same. So maybe once we get actual fall weather, that changes things. Clean app. What I've always wanted. I've gone as far as to putting the actual Pixel weather icon on my main home screen. That's how much I like it. I replaced the widget with it for reasons. But yeah, I like it. You?
I have only been using it for those weather the summaries, because I think they're pretty good. They've been pretty solid. I don't know. I'm not really a big weather app user. I just look out the window and think, oh, it's going to rain. I mean, that's part and parcel of living in the UK, but I do think the application looks great. I know that some people don't like the utility of it. I've seen some discourse online around saying it's just visually appealing but not actually useful, which I find interesting, and fair enough if that's how you feel about it. There's loads of other apps out there that do similar things anyway if you want to get the weather.
I think it looks, though.
True. True. I mean, obviously, I can have the BBC weather app here, which is ad-free.
I was going to say you have.
We're in that. That's one benefit. It's one Brexit benefit. There's a few things. There's a few things that I like about it. I do like the notifications I get. I've just had one as we're talking, which is for the next day ones. Yes, that's kind of nice. Which I don't remember. I had
so random though.
Yeah, the timing's all over the place.
There's like a huge range on when they.
Usually I'll get it between 5 and 7 p.m, which I find really odd. Like, it'd be good to get one in the morning as well, but hey, it is what it is. Yeah, I like it. But I think for me, the killer has been Pixel Screenshots. I think Pixel Screenshots is absolutely awesome because there's someone who takes tons and tons of screenshots. The fact that I can catalog them. The only downside is it is on my home screen, the screenshots, but on the second page. Is that technically the home screen? I guess it is. I am really bad because I'm so ingrained of expecting screenshots to be in photos. I'm going to photos to look for them. And I'm like, where are my screenshots? And then I go to Pixel Screenshots after the fact.
So this is a specific, like somebody in tech, our job specifically. I need to get photos across between my phone and the desktop. So unfortunately, I still have to use Google Photos a lot. And my strategy has been favoriting photos for years that I want preserved, but now I can go. I use the collections feature in Pixel Screenshots a bit, so that's nice for grouping. Currently broken on the QPR betas, so that's
okay. Well, a lot of it, that's me avoiding the QPR betas for a while. Then
good for you. Yeah, it's anyways, that's another issue. But yeah, Pixels. Have you been using the search feature a lot? I haven't, unfortunately.
Yes. Okay.
I'm still using it more for manual curation.
Let me get into that. Okay, so I recently messed up my gym login code. So you can use a QR code with an application, or you can have an actual dial, almost like a keypad, and you put in your code. And I lost it, so I had to request a new one, and it was sent to an email that I forgot where it was, and it ended up in my spam folder. So instead of me just constantly going back to that email by searching Gmail, which Gmail, considering how Google makes search, how bad sometimes Gmail search is, it befuddles me. But with Pixel Screenshots, I just took a screenshot of the code and the email, and I just searched for like gym code. Boom, I'm finding it every time. I don't even favorite it anymore because I don't mind searching for it. I've done it with that. I've done it with train tickets. I've done it with bus tickets. Obviously, date, bus ticket, or whatever it is, return journey. It's epic. I think that is so useful for someone who takes a lot of screenshots. I kind of treat that as like I'm guessing you're the same as well. I use it as my personal scrapbook. So I'm like, take a screenshot, boom, it's done. Or like someone will send me a message and I don't know, sometimes I might delete it or whatever. I'll take the screenshot, it's saved. And I can just search for it. So yeah, I think it's been really, really useful to use Pixel Screenshots. Yeah.
You're perilously close to describing Path if you used that back in the day.
I loved Path back in the day.
Just bring it back, not as a social network. But anyways, yeah, Pixel Screenshots, it's nice. It's useful. The utility, again, the utility is right there. Pixel Studio is what I've been using it for is I kind of like opening it and just browsing through the suggested generations for the day. That's I still, when I want to edit something, I'm in Google Photos. I'm using the Magic Editor tools. That has been harder to break. It's interesting. It's back to the idea of screenshots. Photos is a jack of all trades. Maybe it shouldn't be, but I'm so ingrained into photos right now, especially with Ask Gemini, Ask Photos, which we'll talk about on another day. But yeah, I don't know. For the editing capabilities, I'm still firmly in Photos, and Pixel Studio is a nice gallery of sorts to just browse if you have a. I like to run concepts, so I'll like search for stuff. I mean, to be quite honest with you, I use it for memes most of the time, and I'm still of the opinion. I'm still of the opinion. Yeah, get it into Gboard, 100%. Get it into Gboard as an accessory in there.
and I guarantee the usage rates will skyrocket. If they could make it on the side to Emoji Kitchen, oof, now you're talking to me. Yeah, I have one genuine usage of Pixel Studio, which I was very surprised at. So, as I mentioned, I went to the beach in the first week or so having the phone. I went with some friends who had their son there, who's only about 2 or 3, and he decided to just have a little bit of a meltdown in the ride home from the beach. And so I was like, okay, why don't we do something here? So I was like, oh, give me some keywords and we'll create pictures from it. Aww. So it was like, dinosaur with a cupcake, or I think there was. We tried to. This is before the guide rails went really, really far up, so you could do like Pokemon or whatever it was. So we were doing stuff like Thomas the Tank Engine with sunglasses and things like that, and he was absolutely loving it because we could just kind of keep him occupied. And I thought that was kind of one usage I never expected to come across. So that was kind of cool. But for the most part, I think it's meme generations. It's a nice application.
It's not to say that meme generation isn't isn't a thing that people find useful. It's a tool. It's a different kind of tool than maybe Google expected, but it's firmly in the creation aspect, and it's I guess I'm finding more value in its existence than I thought I would be, especially as somebody who already has Gemini. Don't get me wrong, I don't use it every single day. I use it every so often, and I still don't know how I feel about AI image generation in general. Yeah. But I feel like for throwaway stickers and memes, I think that's probably about, for me anyway, borderline acceptable. Yeah. I would never use them for again, it's conceptualizing things like, what would this look like, more so than anything. Most of the time, I'm kind of, I don't want to say I'm vehemently against AI image generation, but I think it has to be siloed away. As long as it's not the fun, the levity of it should be kept. It's I would still feel odd about like generating an image to say use in a post. That's absolutely, we're not there yet. I'd even say I'm not comfortable using it in an email, a more professional email context.
Yeah, 100%.
But if something like messages, like it's with people who know what this is, I'm absolutely way more comfortable there. So I think the path forward for these kinds of apps is, it's not the serious use case that maybe Google and others want, but there is a path for the existence. There's a road on how these apps can exist, and it's just fine that way.
Yeah, 100%. And what's the final application that was launched with that? I can't remember now off the top of my head.
It's those 3, right? Screenshots, weather, and
those 3. Yeah, I think they're pretty solid in terms of like applications that you can't get elsewhere. I wonder if they'll ever come to the older models, and probably is going to be kept. It was one of those things. I can imagine it's just going to be kept separate for now, but there's
Pixel weather, they absolutely should come to all 100%.
Of them. 100%. But yeah, I think it's a fairly solid. It's fairly solid considering it is Android 14. It would have been nice to have 15, and I'm excited to see. Hopefully, in the next few weeks, we'll get to see Android 15 released, and maybe that may prove beneficial in terms of like battery life, all those kind of things, and tweak some things.
Apps. And I have to say, I've been using the QPR1 betas.
Yeah, how
that's my battery life of ending. So I actually wouldn't. I'd say that. Since it's not final stuff, there's obviously some bugs. I would say that's probably not the most effective. But once the final, like Android 15 itself, then the QPR1, they're obviously different. But 15, that's worth revisiting on just stable 15, and the QPRs are something else entirely.
Yeah, I do think when 15 comes, it's going to be the final form of the Pixel 9. Maybe that's the plan all along. Maybe it was, hey, become an early adopter. By the time you usually would buy a Pixel, you're getting the full experience. Which again, you probably should never really buy a product on the promise of future updates. But yeah, I think that kind of sums up almost 3 months with the Pixel 9 series. Yeah, I mean, we wanted to talk a little bit about the Buds and the Pixel Watch, but
we'll revisit that. Well, absolutely revisit that.
Well, maybe we'll revisit that in the next few weeks as well, because we managed to get really into the weeds here a little bit, and hopefully you've enjoyed it. If you have, really, really appreciate it. Go and share this podcast with whoever you want to share it with, especially if they're a Pixel fan or someone on the fence. We have obviously content on the YouTube channel and the website as well. Go check that out. I think you'll be pleasantly surprised with the Pixel 9 series. I don't know if there's anything else you wanted to
Nope. Thanks for
plug before that, but
joining,
this
everyone.
has been episode 27. Yes, you heard that right. 27 of Pixelated. Appreciate you joining us today, and thanks, Abner, and I'll speak to you soon.
Bye. Bye, everyone.